Two towns, 15 minutes apart, completely different lives. That's the one thing most people don't realize when they start researching this area. They find Asheville, they fall in love with the idea of it, and then somewhere deep in a Reddit thread or a relocation forum, they stumble across Weaverville, North Carolina. And suddenly the question shifts from, should I move to Asheville, to, wait, should I really be looking at Weaverville instead? It's a fair question, and the honest answer is it completely depends on who you are. I help a lot of relocation buyers work through this exact decision. People who've already fallen in love with this area and are now trying to figure out whether they want the energy of Asheville or the quiet of Weaverville. It's one of the most common conversations that I have, and the answer is almost never obvious until you ask the right questions. I've spent a lot of time in both of these towns. I know what people love about each one, and I know what surprises them once they actually live there. So today, we're doing a real side-by-side, no fluff, 6 categories, 2 towns, 1 decision, and by the end of this video, you should know exactly which one fits your lifestyle. Let's go. Before we get into the numbers, let's talk about the feeling, because this is where most people make their decision before they even realize it. Asheville is a city with genuine energy. It's eclectic, creative, and culturally dense in a way that's rare for a city its size. There's always something happening: live music on a Tuesday, a gallery opening, a food festival, a protest, or a parade. These streets have texture. The people are interesting. There's a real cosmopolitan pulse here, wrapped inside of a mountain town. But that energy has a cost. Asheville can feel relentless. It's loud in the way that living cities are loud. It's busy. It's full of tourists for most of the year. If you're someone who needs quiet to recharge, the city's constant hum can eventually wear on you. Weaverville, by contrast, is genuinely quiet. It's a small town in the way that small towns used to be. A walkable downtown, a handful of good local spots, neighbors who know your name. The pace is slower by region. People move to Weaverville because they want that pace. They want to hear birds in the morning instead of traffic. But quiet has its own cost. If you crave spontaneity, if you want to walk out your front door and have 20 things to do, Weaverville won't give you that. You'll drive to Asheville when you want the buzz. And for some people, that 15-minute drive might as well be a different world. The vibe question is really a personality question. But the money question, that one's more concrete. And the gap between these two towns is smaller than most people expect. But it matters. Let's talk money, because this is where Weaverville starts to look very attractive, especially to people who've already run the numbers on Asheville and had a minor cardiac event. In Asheville, the median home price has climbed into a territory that surprises most people researching a move here. We're talking a market that's been appreciating aggressively for decades, with prices that can rival cities far larger than Asheville's actual size. West Asheville bungalows, North Asheville craftsmen, anything walkable to downtown, inventory is tight and the demand is generally persistent. Rent follows the same logic. A 1-bedroom apartment in a decent Asheville neighborhood can still run you $1,400 to $2,000 or more a month. And that's before utilities, parking, and the general resort town tax that shows up everywhere from your grocery store to your mechanic. Weaverville tells a different story with the same budget. The same dollar amount that buys you a modest bungalow in West Asheville will often buy you a larger home on a bigger lot in Weaverville, with a garage, possibly a yard, and maybe a mountain view that would cost a significant premium in the city. The trade-off is that you're further from downtown. Asheville's walkable core and Weaverville's own walkable downtown is small. Day-to-day costs are broadly similar. You're still in the same regional economy, still shopping at similar stores, but housing is where the gap can show up most. And for buyers especially, that gap can be meaningful. So if your dollar goes further in Weaverville, why doesn't everyone just move there? Because the job question and the commute question changes that math entirely. Here's where the two towns start to diverge in a way that's genuinely important for people still building their careers. Asheville has the jobs, not in the abundance of a major metro, but relative to Weaverville, it's not even close. Healthcare, hospitality, creative industries, local government, small businesses, whatever exists in the regional economy, it exists inside Asheville's city limits or just adjacent to them. If you need to be where the work is, Asheville is where the work is. Weaverville has virtually no standalone employment base. It's a residential community. There are local businesses, some excellent ones. But if you're looking for a career in Weaverville itself, that's not really the model. Weaverville residents who work locally to commute to Asheville. Full stop. Now the commute. 15 minutes on a normal day. It's generally not too bad. US 1923 North is a real highway. It moves. On a good morning, Weaverville to downtown, Asheville is a non-event. On a bad day though, winter, ice, fender bender on the merge, October leaf peeping weekend, that 15 minutes can become 35 or 45 minutes real quick. And if your job requires you in Asheville daily, you'll experience both versions of that commute pretty regularly. The people for whom Weaverville makes the most sense from a work standpoint fall into two categories: remote workers who don't commute at all, and people whose jobs are in northern Asheville. Mission Hospital businesses near the Weaverville Road corridor, where the commute is generally minimal. But for a lot of people researching this area, the job situation is already solved. They're remote, they're retired, they're bringing income with them. And for those people, the question shifts to something even more personal. What does your daily life actually look like when you walk out of the front door? This is the section where Asheville and Weaverville feel most different. And your answer is going to tell you a lot about yourself. Asheville is dense with things to do. More breweries per capita than nearly any city in America. A restaurant scene that punches at a level most cities twice its size can't even match. Live music every night, art galleries, independent bookshops, yoga studios, comedy shows, farmers markets, world-class hiking 15 minutes in any direction. If you're someone who needs cultural stimulation built into your daily environment, Asheville feeds that almost effortlessly. You don't have to plan it, you just walk out the door and it's there. Weaverville has a tight but genuinely good set of local amenities. A few excellent restaurants. Stony Knob Cafe has been a local institution for decades. Some quality local shops. Lake Louise, which is a beautiful, walkable little park right in town. And immediate access to the mountains. Reams Creek, Max Patch, the French Broad Headwaters area. That rivals anything Asheville offers in terms of outdoor access. What Weaverville doesn't have is depth. When you've been to the good restaurants, you've been to the good restaurants. When you want more, you drive south. And here's the honest truth about that. Most Weaverville residents I've talked to say they go into Asheville maybe once or twice a week. They have their regular spots. They enjoy the city without living in it. For a lot of people, that's actually the ideal arrangement. Close enough to dip in, far enough away to exhale. The lifestyle question ties directly into the next one, because where you live shapes who you live around. And the community feel in these two towns is more different than the 15-minute drive would suggest. This one's harder to quantify, but it matters more than most people admit when they're researching a move. Asheville is a genuinely diverse and dynamic community. It skews young and progressives, a lot of transplants, a lot of people who moved here intentionally because of what Asheville represents culturally. Artists, activists, outdoor enthusiasts, foodies, remote workers, retirees who want more stimulation than a typical retirement community. The city draws a specific kind of person And there's a real social energy that comes from that concentration. It also means Asheville can feel, at times, like a city in transition, sometimes uncomfortably so. The tension between long-term locals and the wave of newcomers is real. The homelessness situation is very visible. The cost of living has displaced people who built this community. And if you move to Asheville, you move into a place with genuine social complexity. Weaverville has a different demographic center of gravity. It skews slightly older, slightly more established, families, retirees, people who specifically choose to step back from city density. It's a community where people tend to know each other, where neighbors wave, where the pace of social life is slower and often more intentional. That said, Weaverville has been growing steadily and attracting its own wave of transplants. Remote workers, young families priced out of Asheville, people who want mountain living without mountain town turned tourist destination energy. The community is changing, but it's changing at a different pace than Asheville. Neither profile is better. They're just genuinely different. And just being honest with yourself about which one you'll actually thrive in, not which one sounds good, is the most important things you can do before you sign anything. Which brings us to our last piece. And this is the one that makes or breaks the decision for most people who are genuinely torn. All right, let's make this concrete. Choose Asheville if you want culture, energy, spontaneity built into your daily environment. If the idea of walking to dinner, stumbling into live music, and having 20 things to do on a Saturday without even planning it, that's not a nice to have for you, that's a need, then Asheville is your town. If you're building a career locally, networking in creative or healthcare industries, or need to be embedded in the city's economic fabric, Asheville keeps you close to where things happen. If you're a younger transplant, a first-time buyer willing to accept smaller square footage for walkability, or someone who moves to a place for its personality first and its practicality second, Asheville will give you a story to tell. Choose Weaverville if you've already figured out the income side, remote work, retirement, or a portable business. And what you're really optimizing for now is quality of life and peace. If you want more home for your money, a bigger yard, a quieter street, and the city close enough to enjoy without having to live in the middle of it, Weaverville delivers on that reliably. If you have a family and you're weighing school options, neighborhood safety, and how much space your kids have to run around, Weaverville's residential character is a genuine asset. If you move to the mountains because you wanted the mountains, not the food hall, not the brewery call, but actual mountain living, Weaverville puts you closer to that feeling day in and day out. Here's the thing I come back to when people ask me this question directly. Asheville is a place you move to for what it gives you, the energy, the culture, the scene. You want access to all of it, and you're willing to trade the noise and the cost and the crowds for the richness of it. Weaverville is a place you move to for what it doesn't have, the traffic, the tourists, the relentlessness of city living. You've either had enough of that somewhere else, or you just know you never wanted it to begin with. And the 15 minutes to Asheville means you can borrow the city's vibrancy whenever you want it, and come home to quiet when you don't. Neither of those is wrong. They're just honest answers about different lives. Figure out which life you're actually after, and then go find your house. If you're in the middle of this decision right now, drop a comment. Tell me where you're coming from and what's pulling you toward the area. I read them all, and this stuff genuinely helps me help you by making better videos that are actually useful. If you're leaning toward one or the other and want to dig deeper, I've got more videos on Asheville neighborhoods and a full cost of living breakdown, and I'll link it right below. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Subscribe for more honest content about life in Western North Carolina, and I'll see you in the next video.